tonight. The race is over.
Alrighty, Virginia, we won this thing!
Virginia's vote in a new Republican governor. This is a measure to overhaul the police in Minneapolis is defeated. The election day results that put the GOP on top. And vaccine mandates on the chopping block. A major group of Republican senators work to overturn vaccination requirements as the Pfizer vaccine is approved for emergency use in young kids.
I wouldn't be getting any of my kids an emergency use authorization vaccination.
The turning point with many parents still on the fence. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation.
A new Republican reign in the Commonwealth. Welcome to Faith Nation. I'm John Jessup.
And I'm Jenna Browder. For the first time in 12 years, Virginia has elected a Republican governor. And not only that, Glenn Youngkin led a GOP sweep of the top 3 statewide races, including Winsome Sears, who becomes the state's first female and African-American lieutenant governor.
After initially refusing to concede Tuesday night, Democratic candidate and former governor Terry McAuliffe affirmed Youngkin's win today. CBN's Brody Carter joins us with more on the election results and fallout. Brody.
John, Jenna, Republicans claimed victory up and down the ballot, including taking the majority in the House of Delegates. While the race was called for Youngkin around 1 a.m., it took Terry McAuliffe a while longer to accept defeat. In this morning's statement, McAuliffe said, "While last night we came up short, I am proud that we spent this campaign fighting for the values we so deeply believe in." McAuliffe's concession follows a stunning night of surprises. The last time a Republican won the governor's office came in 2009. Now, the road to victory included big battles over education, vaccine mandates, abortion, and the economy. Independents, who make up a third of voters, provided key support for the GOP. For Youngkin supporters, optimism turned to celebration as those numbers kept pouring in.
All righty, Virginia, we won this thing! We're going to introduce choice within our public school system.
The amount of energy behind this candidate and this slate is amazing.
I've had people from as far as Illinois and Texas fly out here to knock doors for Glenn Youngkin. They are inspired by his message.
Election officials say voter turnout was high, almost 1 million more voters than the 2017 election for governor. Republican gains give the GOP a leg up ahead of next year's congressional midterm elections and could set the pace for the presidential election. John, Jenna, back to you.
All right, Brody Carter, thank you so much. Joining us now is Julia Manchester, political reporter for The Hill. Julia, thank you for doing double duty. We know you were up late last night covering the McAuliffe campaign. You know, interesting takeaways with the vote breakdown. Among them, Youngkin won outright with the Latino vote, 55 to 45%. And the economy, by far, Julia, was the top issue for Virginia voters, according to a Wall Street Journal breakdown of the AP's VoteCast survey. Julia, Governor-elect Youngkin hammered that home from day one and never really deviated. How significant was that economic strategy?
Well, I think it was very significant, John, especially when you compare it to Terry McAuliffe's messaging strategy, which basically hinged for most of the campaign on Donald Trump and saying a vote for Glenn Youngkin equal to vote for former President Trump, despite Trump not being in the White House or really holding any elected office at this point. I think the messaging on the economy was particularly effective because it comes as we're seeing rising prices for gas and goods and services, as well as inflation. So I think it was it made sense that Youngkin went in that direction. It's also a more tangible sort of issue to touch on. It's easy for voters to understand an economic issue when it's really directly hitting their kitchen table, for example. With Donald Trump, that was sort of a theoretical thing. You know, there's a chance that that Glenn Youngkin could essentially be like Donald Trump. And it didn't really seem like McAuliffe's strategy really translated with voters that much. But on this note about the economy and Latino voters and Youngkin winning that group, I think that's really interesting because last election cycle, we saw Republicans really sweep a number of key House races in Florida with the help of the Latino vote, which I think is a bit more conservative, or parts of the vote are more conservative than we often assume they are. So, you know, through that messaging on the economy, I think Glenn Youngkin was very much able to attract Latino and Hispanic voters in Virginia.
Julia, you mentioned McAuliffe and how he made a big effort to try to tie Youngkin to former President Trump. You know, that didn't seem to stick. Julia, moving forward, do you think we'll see Democrats take a different tack?
You know, I think it depends what district and what state Democrats are running in. You know, for example, in Virginia, where Trump is not popular and Youngkin was running a very walking a very fine line on this issue, you know, I don't think that's going to necessarily work, despite the fact that President Trump is unpopular. Look, Virginia is not a deep blue state. It hasn't been a deep blue state. It's been a light blue to purple state. So, you know, it's hard to essentially make this connection about a former president to a current candidate that hasn't held office and say that that essentially equals ultra-conservative pro-Trump rule in the state. In a deeper blue state, maybe where Democrats hold much safer seats, maybe that works. But if they're already in a safe seat, I couldn't really imagine them going all out and going to that length to tie their opponent to Donald Trump.
All right, Julia Manchester, political reporter at The Hill. Hopefully you get some rest tonight. Thank you, Julia.
Thanks, Julia. Well, from Virginia to New Jersey, and another big warning sign for Democrats. Tonight, the race for governor there remains too close to call. Analysts shocked that the Republican underdog performed as well as he did against the incumbent Democrat.
CBN News Capitol Hill correspondent Abigail Robertson brings us more on what last night's results could mean for both parties going forward.
There's a new sheriff in town.
Virginia Republicans, like newly elected Attorney General Jason Miyares, kept their message local, focusing on jobs, education, and safety.
I think there's going to be a real culture shift there and focus on going after violent criminals and getting them off our street.
In New Jersey, a state Biden won by 15 points. The race is virtually deadlocked after a surprisingly strong showing for Republican candidate Jack Ciattarelli.
We've got to have time to make sure that every legal vote is counted. And I'm confident that when they are, I can stand before you and not say we're winning. I can stand before you and say we've won.
In Minneapolis, voters overwhelmingly rejected a ballot initiative to replace the police with a Department of Public Safety. And in Buffalo, New York, a write-in candidate defeated Democratic Socialist India Walton for mayor.
They want government to tell you all of these things and control your life. And that's not what we want.
Former Ambassador Nikki Haley telling CBN News Democrats have tried to change the foundation of our government, and voters are rejecting it.
But this is an example of what happens when you allow socialism in and when you put government control in. And what you get is a response from freedom-loving people saying, this is not our country. This is not what we asked for.
The results from both New Jersey and Virginia are called a referendum on President Biden's first year in office. They also point to a steep climb ahead for Democrats hoping to keep their majorities in the 2022 midterms. Reporting from Virginia, Abigail Robertson, CBN News.
All right, thank you, Abby. Well, as you might imagine, Republicans were celebrating today. House leadership holding a news conference where they highlighted issues like the national school debate. Leader Kevin McCarthy announcing his members will unveil a Parents' Bill of Rights.
Doesn't matter your wealth, the color of your skin. Once you have a child, it is no longer what you become. It is now what opportunity your children will have. You have a right to know what's being taught in the school. You have a right to participate.
And here with us now is Tony Perkins, president of the Family Research Council. Tony, welcome. Great to have you with us this evening. So Republicans, you just heard Speaker McCarthy there, or excuse me, Leader McCarthy, really taking the issue of education and running with it. What lessons will both parties take from this election, Tony?
It's been quite amazing to watch. This was a perfect storm, and it was created by the Democrats. What happened yesterday is I believe voters gave the Democratic Party and their politicians and their policies a failing grade. And this is in large part to what is the result of Joe Biden and his policies. Let's talk about this issue of education that was just mentioned. That really wasn't on the radar. It's never been an issue, a winning issue for Republicans. But because of the Biden administration pushing their gender ideology, their CRT curriculum into schools, this became a huge issue in the Virginia race. In fact, nearly a quarter of Virginia voters said education was the #1 issue for them in voting for Glenn Youngkin. That's, you hardly ever hear of that occurring, where Republicans benefit from the public education issue, but parents are so fed up with what is happening with this leftist agenda being carried out in classrooms that they've said enough is enough. And the Republicans are smart. Glenn Youngkin was smart to do this, and the Republicans in Congress are smart to do this as well, to stand on the side of parents.
Tony, you just drew a contrast between the competing agendas. Do you think the election results spook Democrats nationally and perhaps sink Biden's social spending bill as the party rethinks its agenda?
It should scare the devil out of them, quite frankly, with what we saw yesterday. But do they straighten up and fly right? I don't know that they can help themselves. You've got the progressives who are actually saying, well, the reason we didn't do well yesterday is because we haven't pushed the $3.5 trillion bill and haven't gotten it across with all of its social spending, socialist goodies in it. See, I think some are completely tone deaf to what voters are saying. I do think that Nancy Pelosi is going to have a much more difficult time in keeping her House, her Democratic caucus, corralled, because from being in politics for nearly 25 years, self-preservation is one of the top issues for elected officials, and where she is leading them is not going to lead to the success of their political careers.
Tony, I want to shift gears here and talk about the Supreme Court. Another major Second Amendment case today over a New York law putting restrictions on concealed handguns. Curious how you expect the court to rule on this one, Tony.
It was interesting. You look at the oral arguments. The questions that were being asked from the conservative justices seemed to see that they were sympathetic, and that's good, toward the Constitution and the Second Amendment. Look, as a former police officer, and one who I believe in the Second Amendment. And you see, this is another issue that is going to, I think, factor into the elections, because in New York, you have some of these same elected officials that are talking about defunding the police, standing on the side of those who are breaking the law, and the average citizen afraid to go out of their homes. And so they simply want to protect themselves. The criminals have guns. Why shouldn't law-abiding citizens? And that seems to be the direction the court was going. So I'm optimistic with what I heard from the court.
Tony, real quickly here, you know, the justices also heard the Texas heartbeat law earlier this week. Justice Kavanaugh expressed some concern about the Lone Star State's enforcement mechanism, saying that it could infringe on other constitutional rights like gun rights and free speech. Does he have a point? In a few seconds we have left.
Yeah, very fascinating structure of the law, but I think we need to keep our eye, for those of us concerned about the life issue in Roe v. Wade. The real case is the Dobbs case. This was more looking at the legal structure, not the issue itself. That comes December 1st. We're prayerful and optimistic that the court will do the right thing and uphold the sanctity of human life.
All right, Tony Perkins with the Family Research Council. Thank you, Tony.
Thanks,
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Coming up, what some parents have to say now that the Pfizer vaccine is approved for some 28 million more American children.
To have sex before you marry is a bad idea.
Don't tell me there's no such thing as gun violence.
That just depends on your definition of when life begins.
Watch Dan and Dale tackle trending topics that test your faith on the next Faith Wire. Monday night at 8:30 on the CBN News Channel. The Global Lane takes you around the world, providing facts over fiction.
What might rising trade and geopolitical tensions mean for you on the home front?
With over 45 years of experience, award-winning journalist Gary Lane brings you the truth from a global angle.
What about the issue of immigration?
World news analysis you won't see anywhere else.
And it's all right here on the Global Lane.
Thursday night at 8:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Welcome back. The president expected to issue a rule this week mandating vaccine requirements for businesses with more than 100 workers.
But a group of Senate Republicans has mounted a challenge telling President Biden to stand down and back off those mandates.
The idea that one man, the president of the United States, can force Americans to choose between getting a vaccine or keeping their job and putting food on the table for their family undermines literally all principles of liberty found in our Constitution.
The effort involves 41 Republican senators who say they're worried about possible unintended consequences of vaccination requirements on labor shortages and the economy.
Meanwhile, millions of children in the United States are now eligible for the COVID-19 vaccine.
That's right, but only 27% of parents say they're willing to have their kids vaccinated. CBN's Charlene Aaron has more on why that is.
The CDC director granted final approval after a panel voted unanimously in favor of the vaccine Tuesday, with some kids receiving the shot shortly after it was given the okay.
We have a total of 14 yeses, 0 nos.
Millions of doses of Pfizer's COVID-19 shot for kids shipping out across the country.
Right there is 1,000 doses of the pediatric vaccine.
Children in Connecticut, the first to receive the vaccine after the CDC's green light. Last week, the Food and Drug Administration authorized emergency use for kid doses. Pfizer says its trial data shows that the vaccine, which is still 2 shots but 1/3 an adult dose, is nearly 91% effective against symptomatic illness in children ages 5 to 11. Side effects are minimal, which include a sore arm, headaches, or fever. And studies found no cases of myocarditis, a rare heart inflammation seen in some young men.
It's probably because of the smaller dose in these vaccines, but we're finding that fever and other side effects are a lot less common in kids in this age group. And most of these kids aren't even going to need to miss a day of school.
Even so, only about 27% of parents are willing to have their kids vaccinated right away.
I wouldn't be getting any of my kids an emergency use authorization vaccination. I definitely would want to see long-term studies.
CBN medical reporter Lori Johnson highlighted some of those concerns.
There are a number of reasons, but the number one reason was they're afraid of unknown long-term side effects. And when asked to drill down on what side effects they're worried about, 2/3, John, said they're worried that later on down the road, their children might have fertility problems, trouble conceiving children when they are adults, even though there's absolutely no evidence presented by the drug company Pfizer, the FDA, and the CDC that is a risk.
Meanwhile, President Biden called the approval of the shot a turning point in the battle against COVID-19. And doctors say children who get vaccinated before Thanksgiving will be fully covered by Christmas. Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
Thanks, Charlene. Well, a big sky state up next. Why the governor calls it a sanctuary for freedom.
Want to be a part of a community that inspires your spiritual growth while winning prizes? The all-new MyCBN app. Connect with the community for prayer and encouragement. Track and set spiritual goals. Enjoy conversation starters with friends and family. And collect points to win prizes. The all-new MyCBN app. A great place to belong. Download the app at cbn.com/mobile.
Nutrition, exercise, essential oils, weight loss, and more. It's Healthy Living with Lori Johnson.
Talk about what's in this.
Join CBN health reporter Lori Johnson to get the latest information from today's top health experts.
This is fantastic.
Find out what you need to know to live a healthier life. Watch Healthy Living Tuesday night at 8:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Too often, we carry baggage from our past. You know what it's like. It affects everything and everyone in our lives. It's always there, weighing us down and keeping us from achieving true happiness. But do you know God never meant for us to be trapped in the past? You can be free of your baggage. Learn how God's forgiveness leads to changed lives and new beginnings. Call the 700 Club.
Welcome back. A sanctuary for freedom. That's how Montana's top public official describes the Treasure State.
His pushback against federal overreach in the state, in state elections, and mandates on masks and vaccines mirrors his strong stand for life and his faith. Mark Martin traveled to Montana to speak with the governor for this CBN News exclusive.
Montana Governor Greg Gianforte lives on a tranquil piece of property in Bozeman. Gianforte describes Montana as a ruby-tinted haven for those who love liberty.
Montana is a sanctuary for freedom and the free market.
And governing from that freedom mindset, Gianforte is pushing back against mandates.
I think it's critically important that government communicate, educate, but I don't think we should be mandating. And this is why Montana is the only state in the country that has said it's a personal decision as to whether or not you want to get vaccinated, which I believe is true.
While he's been vaccinated against COVID and calls it the best way for people to protect themselves and their families, Gianforte stops short of turning advice into public policy.
We're not going to discriminate in the provision of employment or services based on vaccine status. That's also why we got rid of vaccine passports here in Montana.
He's also not a fan of mask mandates.
We had 16 years of Democrat governors, and I inherited a set of impractical mandates. We had restrictions on hours of operation. We had a mask mandate. We had restrictions, other restrictions on businesses. In fact, our state government was even suing individual small businesses for not being restrictive enough in the provision of their services. We unwound all that.
Prior to becoming governor, Gianforte made headlines in 2017 after being accused of body slamming a journalist the day before Montana voters elected him to the House of Representatives. Gianforte pleaded guilty to misdemeanor assault, completed anger management counseling, and paid Ben Jacobs of The Guardian some $4,500 in restitution. Fast forward to 2020 when Gianforte ran for governor, campaigning on jumpstarting Montana's economy, which apparently struck a chord. According to the National Governors Association, he received more votes than any candidate for governor in state history. Now in office, the businessman is using his platform not just to promote good-paying jobs, he's also taking a stand for states' rights.
What we see coming out of Washington is concerning. The federal overreach, an attempt to take over our elections, that's clearly delegated to the states. That's why in Montana we passed a number of laws this spring to outlaw same-day voter registration, to require photo IDs, because I think no matter Democrats or Republicans, we want to have confidence in our elections.
He's also concerned about the Biden administration's immigration policy and its impact on Montana.
What's going on at the southern border is a train wreck. It's a humanitarian crisis. It's also a national security crisis. And the effect on a northern state like Montana are the drugs and the addiction that's ripping our families and our communities apart.
In addition, he's shoring up the Second Amendment in his state.
We also put in place rules that would push back against any federal overreach in the area of our Second Amendment. So local law enforcement would not have to enforce unconstitutional rules here in the state.
Gianforte also is not shy about taking a stand for life.
We need to protect the most precious amongst us. Those are the unborn and the elderly. And I was very pleased to sign into law some very strong pro-life legislation to make sure we do protect the most vulnerable.
Nor is he hesitant in talking about his faith.
I am a Christian, and it's important. As believers, we know that the skills we have, in fact, the skills that anyone has, are really a gift from God. And our primary responsibility in life is to use those skills, to be good stewards of those skills in serving other people and honoring our Lord.
Gianforte wants his state to remain a steward of freedom and hopes the federal government follows suit. Mark Martin, CBN News, Bozeman, Montana.
Are you suffering from feeling tired or worn out during the day? Can you not turn off your brain at night? You are not alone. Hi, I'm Dr. Michael Bruce, the sleep doctor, and I've partnered with the Christian Broadcasting Network, and we're going to bring you some unbelievable information that you can use tonight to get a better night's rest.
Wake up to your best life. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com to get your free copy of Protect Your Sleep today.
Nutrition, exercise, essential oils, weight loss, and more. It's Healthy Living with Lori Johnson.
Talk about what's in this.
Join CBN health reporter Lori Johnson to get the latest information from today's top health experts.
This is fantastic.
Find out what you need to know to live a healthier life. Watch Healthy Living Tuesday night at 8:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Woohoo! Hi, Superbook fans. Here's something else you'll love. Whoa! It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh, no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! Whoa!
Hillsborough Falls man, come...
Sorry, pardon me. Sorry, excuse me. Ouch!
Are you getting this?
Earn super points to win daily prizes, too. And so much more! Time to get back to my adventures. See you soon. It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
Finally tonight, out of the park and into the World Series, the Atlanta Braves are celebrating their first championship in 26 years.
That's right. Shortstop Dansby Swanson hit a game-tying home run and tossed the final out-of-the-game slugging past the Houston Astros in a 7-0 victory. After the win, he shared how his faith got him there. Swanson grew up playing baseball just miles from the Braves Stadium. He joined the team in 2015 after being traded by Arizona, a decision he says he didn't quite understand at the time. Swanson reminded fans, though, having faith in God's plan will never fail you. Congratulations to them and also the Astros.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this evening.
Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you right back here tomorrow.